Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the PM Powered Podcast. I'm Wanda Curley, your authority on project, program, and portfolio management. PM Powered is also a consulting company that provides you project, program, and portfolio management. It is my delight today to have Andy Jordan as a member of this podcast. And let me give you a little background on Andy. Andy Jordan is president of Rofesian. Did I say that correctly, Andy?
Perfect, Wanda. Thank you.
Thank you. Consulting SA, a Roatan, Honduras-based management consulting firm with a strong emphasis on organizational transformation, portfolio management, and PMOs. So we have some stuff in common, Andy. Andy has a track record of success managing business-critical projects, programs, and portfolios in Europe and North America in industries as diverse as investment banking, software development, call centers, telecommunications, and corporate education. Andy is an in-demand speaker and author who delivers thought-provoking content in an engaging and entertaining style, and is also an instructor in project management related disciplines, including a new portfolio management course on LinkedIn Learning and lynda.com. He always strives to provide thought-provoking presentations that drive his audience to challenge accepted norms while providing actionable content that can be applied in the real world. Thank you, Andy, for being with us today. And I think it's going to be a great discussion. So why did I invite Andy to the podcast? Well, it was because I was reading on projectmanagement.com Andy's blogs on AI, and it resonated with me because I also have a interest in AI, and AI is artificial intelligence. And I also have a background in doing a lot of research on Internet of Things as well, and they kind of go hand in hand when you think about it. And Andy had written a blog on AI, so I thought, well, that makes sense. We both love project management. We both have a passion for it. So let's talk about how AI and possibly IoT will change the environment of project management in the future. So what is AI and IoT? AI, as I mentioned before, is artificial intelligence. It's machine learning. It's where machines learn, but they don't learn like you and I do by studying or that thing. It has to be coded in there. So we still have a long way to go on AI, but AI is starting to become a forefront in today's business world. IoT is just machines taking massive amount of data and scrunching it and not making decisions for us, but presenting it in a way that we can make common sense out of it, because our brains can't handle all the data that comes in, especially on these billion-dollar projects and programs. So we need to have IoT and we need to have AI, in my opinion, to help us on these projects, programs, and portfolios too. So let's start the discussion a little bit. Andy, please tell me how you became interested in AI and project management, and was there something specific or a general interest?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working in technology field for many, many years, so I've always sort of been around the sort of leading edge technologies. And I guess I sort of got to AI and IoT a little bit through sort of that broader sort of concept of disruptive technologies. And disruptive technologies is, I guess it does what it says on the box, right? It's anything that disrupts the norm, and that could be green energy, it could be autonomous vehicles, or it could be pretty much anything in between that is disrupting the norm, the whole digital revolution that we hear so much about at the moment. And that sort of led to me having conversations with some of my colleagues, and more particularly having conversations with some of the vendors of the project portfolio management software, as they were looking to try and make their software more than just glorified project and make the enterprise actually manages the business and the technology around the business. They were looking to try and get into this idea of being more than just glorified project management and being more about part of the integrated enterprise data management, information management of organizations. And they were thinking about how you can actually integrate organizational data with particularly portfolio level decision making. How can you use the information that's available to drive better decision making as to which investments make the most sense, which are going to deliver the best value to organizations, and how you actually make those decisions in a way that avoids disrupting the way the work gets done. Because there's nothing worse than making the right decision, but then having it take 3 months to actually work its way through to actually change what's actually happening in the business. That doesn't help anybody. So that's sort of really what got me into it. And I think that opened up a whole world to me of possibilities as to how AI could potentially get to the point where it fundamentally changes the life of a project manager.
So that's kind of interesting because I haven't had the opportunity to speak to the vendors, but I was looking at AI also to help project managers make at the project level, more at the tactical and slightly strategic level, about making decisions that are everyday decisions, and then allowing the project manager to make the more value add decision. Do you think AI will be helping us in that particular arena at anytime soon, so to speak?
I think that's a wonderful opportunity for organizations to really leverage AI in a very practical sense when it comes to day-to-day project management. I think that if you look at any of what I would think of as project management hard skills, the estimating, the risk identification and analysis, issues management, all that kind of stuff is something that AI can really help with and take a lot of the burden off of PMs and free them up to do that value-add, people-focused work. The challenge that I see is that the quality of the data is not there right now. Organizations have been very inconsistent historically in how they manage projects, how they capture information. And even when they do capture information, a lot of the focus has been on what I would consider precision over accuracy. Organizations don't really want to hear that this project's going to take somewhere between 6 and 8 months and it's going to cost somewhere between $1 and $2 million. They want to know that it's going to take 7 months, 3 weeks and 2 days and it's going to cost $1.639 million, because that's a precise number that they can actually manage to. It may not be accurate, it isn't accurate, but that doesn't matter historically. So I think until we overcome that, we're going to be hamstrung a little bit in terms of actually being able to practically apply PM AI. That said, it's something that has to happen because the world's getting more competitive. There's more and more pressure on margins, and we need to make sure that all of our staff, particularly project managers, are actually focused on value-add work.
Yes, and today, too many project managers are having to do the day-to-day, which is just over-consuming them, especially if they're having to do earned value on their projects, because we know that takes a lot of time. And if we had AI, a lot of that could be taken to the side. And it's a shame that we're going to have to go through an organizational shift, and it's going to have to be quite a dramatic shift to get to the AI potential. And to me, that's almost sad, because I think AI can do so much for the organization and for the project manager in all disciplines of project management.
Yeah, and the technology is there. It just needs
Right.
just needs the will and the data.
I totally agree with you. So do you see project management discipline changing radically due to AI, or do you just see it shifting slowly until we incorporate AI into the organization?
No, I think it's going to be a dramatic change. I think it may be a little way away before it becomes mainstream for all those reasons that we talked about. But I think that when it hits, it's going to have a very profound impact, simply because it's going to fundamentally change what a project manager is. They're not going to be managing work. They're going to be leading people and allowing the technology to handle that work administration, work management, task management stuff. That's how I think project management should be, but we're finally going to be able to get there. We're going to get away from having to spend hours a week producing status reports or updating Gantt charts, or even moving sticky notes on a wall for a Kanban board. That stuff's going to be automated for us, and we can actually focus PMs on leading people and creating an environment where work can get done effectively and efficiently.
Yes, I actually hope to see the day when AI actually writes presentations for us, for senior management and all of that, because I think, to me, that's a mundane task. yes, we'll need to put our own little perspective on it, but most project management presentations have basically the same information in it. It's a status report, so why not have AI do it for you? But I think that's a long ways coming.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you're right.
Okay, how will AI influence the work of a project manager, program manager, and even a portfolio manager, in your opinion?
Well, I think the first impact is actually going to be at that portfolio program manager level, because I think that we're really going to get from the point of decision support and predictive analysis with this augmented intelligence, if you like, sort of semi-artificial intelligence, to the point where we actually allow the basic portfolio decisions to be made by technology. And that would be things like, this project no longer makes sense to do from a practical standpoint. The cost benefits aren't there anymore. We're going to shift this one off to one side. We're going to bring this higher priority initiative back in and start driving forward that. There's no reason why portfolio managers have to be involved in the minutiae of those decisions, whether that's at a project level or even at a sub-project sort of work package level. That stuff can be automated because that stuff relies on less data. We don't need the same level of granularity that we do at the project level. So that stuff's happening already. That's where the PPM software vendors are really focusing their effort, because that's where they see the biggest benefits for them, selling more software, decision support, integration with enterprise planning, the adaptive planning elements that are becoming more important. When it comes down to the program and the project level, that's where I think we're being held up a little bit by a lack of data, and maybe more accurately, a lack of trusted data. We need to get to the point where an that comes out of AI isn't just looked at by an executive and goes, oh, that's higher than I was expecting, it can't be right, and actually goes, okay, that's higher than I was expecting, let me understand why, let me see what the challenge is, let me understand the problem. And that's, I think, the barrier that we're going to have to overcome.
Yeah, that's going to be, like you said, as I was mentioning, an organizational shift where executives have to understand what AI is doing for the project and understand that most likely it's right. I'm not going to say that AI is going to be right all the time, but I'm going to guess that it's going to be right more often than we are as humans, because we just can't take all the data in together. It's not to say that if we as humans could process all the data, if it were correct data, wouldn't come up with the same answer. I'm hoping that AI doesn't come up with such radically different information that it makes it hard to digest. But I think in the short term it will, as you mentioned, and then we have to be able to trust the data. And that's going to be a hard sell, especially for executives. I totally agree with you in that, because right now executives don't even trust their project managers. So why are they going to trust a machine? Although there might be some technology executives that might trust the machine over the project manager. I can see that coming, which is sad to say, because they've got to be able to trust that project manager to then do the value add processing, which the AI will not be able to do, and at least in the short term. I don't know about in the long term. So I agree with you that it's going to be portfolio management first, because that's where the decision making is, and that's where AI is really valuable in the decision making. But I always wonder about these days when I can see projects, program, and portfolio managers having an Alexa or a Siri or a Google on their desk, and they say, hey, Google or Alexa or Siri, can you tell me what the latest risks are on project XYZ? Which one is going to be the riskiest one for me? What are the opportunities? Alexa, could you please call so-and-so and have them do this without me having to chase them? Because everybody will have an Alexa or a Siri on the desk, and then Alexa, Google, or Siri will go out and find that person and say, hey, you need to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's something that should be happening, and a lot of the technology allows it to happen. I've seen a demo of business intelligence BI tools that are integrated with, well, it was Microsoft, so integrated with Cortana, that does allow that level of engagement by an executive team looking at dashboards, in a shared setting where the CFO can say, hey, Cortana, show me the financial information for all projects currently underway, and can then drill down to a particular capital expenditure or a particular GL account on one particular project, and then come back out. And then without changing anything, we can then have the CIO looking at technology resourcing in there, all of it through Cortana interaction. And that's reality. It's just needs to be accepted by organizations. We still, many of us work in an office environment that was designed in the 1950s when we had to be part of an office network, right? So.
Right. And especially as many remote projects that we have nowadays, if we all had as you said, a Cortana or a Siri or any of those sitting on our desk, then a lot of the trying to find people and trying to assess the data, because the data is held remotely. And right now my laptop's not working very well, so now I have another resource to use. So yes, I think it's very slow for adapting, especially at the lower levels, because I can see all employees having a Siri or a Cortana or Google on their desk, not just project managers. I think it needs to be for all businesses. But I'm not sure that'll happen in my lifetime, but we shall see. So let's go to the next question here. Do you see AI yet in project management? If yes, where do you see it? If not, why doesn't project management accept it? And I think you've touched on it a little bit, but could you go into a little bit more depth onto it?
Yeah, for sure. I think there are small pockets. If we're going to be honest, it's really not true AI in many cases. The best I've seen in a practical sense at a project level is more the predictive analysis type of data crunching that looks at an estimate or looks at an analysis of risks as a check or as a backup to the judgment from team members or from project managers to see whether or not the data from the technology is consistent with the data from the people. I think if there are differences, organizations are trying to understand them, but there's still that tendency to think that they'll go for the project manager experience. I think there's also a reluctance to get to the acceptance of technology as giving a range of answers, because the questions that we ask the technology when it comes to projects are not precise. We're dealing with the future. We're dealing with unknowns. We're dealing with a lack of certainty. And yet we don't like it when the technology will tell us that this particular task is going to take somewhere between 16 and 20 hours. We want to know that it's going to take this person 17 hours and they're going to be finished at 13 minutes past 3 on Thursday afternoon, because for some reason knowing that is going to make our life a better place. So I think that we need to overcome this psychological element to it of saying, it's a new world. If we let technology manage the work, then we free up our people to lead the people. But that we have to accept there has to be complete and consistent data, and there has to be a willingness to recognize that we are dealing with imprecision that is going to be a fact of life. And yes, technology will get better. AI will improve with experience, just like the rest of us do. And as we get closer to something, so that cone of uncertainty will get narrower, but it's never going to go away. And I think that's a mental check, maybe not for PMs and teams, but for sponsors and stakeholders and executives who don't like that uncertainty.
Yeah, I go back to where you're talking about data consistently, and I think of all the projects I've been on and all the projects that I'm planning, and I'd love to have gone back to a similar project and the data just isn't there. And I think, wow, think of all the opportunity we missed because we could have seen, well, did this work on this project, or did that work on this project? Or why didn't it work? Where are the lessons learned? How many lessons learned do you know where to go to get the lessons learned on projects? They're normally residing on somebody's laptop, and that does me no good. And if we can't load that into IoT and have it available to AI to make decisions, then how are we ever going to make those levels of decisions that AI could do? And those are things that AI could do right now if we had the data. And as you said, we just don't have the data.
And, yeah, absolutely.
And then another step is we probably don't have the data in a way that AI and IoT can handle it. So that's another step we need to do.
Well, and I think we also haven't even thought about the kind of data we need to really allow AI to support us effectively. How do we tell AI that there's a very good reason why this piece of code took a month to develop, but this piece of almost identical code in terms of size took 6 months to develop? We don't capture that information on innovation, on complexity, on customer uncertainty. That kind of data, which is critical to coming up with accurate estimates, is something that we just inherently process in our brains when we do our human estimates or our human analysis, but it's not something that is captured in a database anywhere that we can just throw at a piece of intelligent software and say, factor this into your calculations.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. When I sit down and think about it and try to think about, well, what is the data that would help me with AI? It just boggles my mind. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's smarter people than me that understand AI a whole lot better than I do that understand it. But we as project managers need to tell those individuals, what is it that I need as a project manager and that I need AI to do for us? And I don't think maybe we've articulated that to the software vendors of AI. Maybe they do have their own project managers, but that's a very limited view. And I think they
Mm-hmm.
need to open up the view to maybe even crowdsource it. There you go.
Yeah,
Crowdsourcing
yeah.
might be a good way of doing it. Of course, you might get a lot of garbage in that as well. There's a lot of crowdsourcing innovative ideas going on out there. So I think it would be a good thing to do for AI and IoT as far as project management goes, because there's a lot of project managers, um, program managers, not as many portfolio managers, but we're increasing in numbers as well. Okay, so how will you see project management tools changing? And we've talked about a little bit about that. Do you see tools like MS Project Online, which was Server, or Primavera instituting AI? How will they do it?
I'm not sure that they're going to directly integrate it with the PPM solution. I think that instead what they're going to look to do is sort of the opposite integration, if you like, and take the PPM platform and integrate it with the enterprise software suite so that you've
Ah,
got PPM
interesting.
software that is part of the data lake and can leverage the BI, the business intelligence platforms that organizations are now investing in. And that allows them to focus the actual AI piece in the BI tool where there is a logical fit, because then it can be applied across the entire organization or data map, and then leverage it within PPM, because you've got either self-contained project management AI by just using PPM and project management data, or you've got that more portfolio investment management perspective by combining the PPM and project data with financial data, with goals and objectives, with marketing, with market analysis, competitive analysis, all that kind of stuff, and give you that sort of complete view. So I think that's how we're going to get there, almost like backdooring into AI by leveraging what exists with BI.
That's interesting because that means they'll have to integrate with various BI tools because there's obviously not just one BI tool. So that'll be an interesting dilemma for the project management vendors to integrate their tools with these different vendors. And as we know, that can be good or bad.
Yeah, and I'm not sure they're going to focus so much on the direct BI tool integration as they will focus
Mhm.
on the data lake integration and then let BI
Okay.
handle it from there.
That makes more sense. Yeah. Okay. Um, Andy, this has been a great discussion, but finally, I'd like to ask you, where do you see project management 5, 10, or even 20 years from now? Will the work of the project manager change slightly or a lot?
Yes. I,
Okay.
I think I think it depends a lot on where you look. As a general rule, I think the role of the project manager is going to continue to evolve quite dramatically. We're already seeing that shift from a focus on the triple constraint to a focus on business outcomes, because at the end of the day, that's why we invest in projects. That's
Right.
happening. When it comes to the mechanics of project management, there are going to be a lot of pressures to change what happens in a lot of industries. I don't think 20 years from now, maybe even 10 years from now, maybe even 5 years from now, we're not going to have software development projects. We're going to have agile, combining with DevOps to give us true continuous delivery. And we're not going to arbitrarily package releases into projects just because that's a convenient way of releasing it, because we don't need to do that. We're just going to do a continuing ongoing release, and we'll probably have permanent agile teams that will actually deliver through on an ongoing set of prioritized features and just keep burning through backlogs and delivering software. On the other hand, we're not going to make a lot of change in how we build buildings. There's not a lot of change that's going to happen in major civil engineering or any kind of engineering projects. Those things are going to remain largely unchanged in terms of structure, at least. Some of the technology elements will obviously evolve. So I think that depending on where you are, you're going to see a lot more diversification of project management. A PM in software development is going to be very different from a PM in drug research or construction or engineering or whatever it might be. So depending on that industry, you're going to see a bigger or lesser exchange. But certainly to come back to what we've been talking about around AI 20 years from now is going to have changed the administration, the mechanics of project management a lot, which means that we truly can focus on where we add value on creating an environment where people can do their best work.
I agree with you. I think it'll depend on the industry. Obviously, as you said, construction, you have to build a building so that it's structurally sound, and those technologies are pretty much here, although they may change, I don't think radically, but some as we get different tools and mechanisms and different types of building materials, then maybe it might change a little bit. But as you said, I don't think it'll change radically. Whereas software, and maybe even doing a project that changes the business environment, those things I think you're right, we won't be doing them radical shifts. We'll be continuously doing that. And we see that in business now, where they're changing their environment, they're downsizing, they're hiring, they're changing how HR works, they're changing how executives work, they're changing how they do things with the employees. So I see that, as you said, as being agile teams, not something that we just put a team together, let's do it, and then we go on to the next thing. So that I think is going to be good for business, and I'm looking forward to the day when that happens, because software needs something new today, because right now it's not really working. So Andy, thank you
Absolutely.
for being here today. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. And Andy and I have been here today by PM Powered, your project portfolio and program management needs, consulting needs. I'm Wanda Curley. Please go to PM Current and LinkedIn and follow me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. And I look forward to seeing you next Monday. Have a blessed week.